was, my grandpa saying that it is possible. So we were saying that eternal life is in the moment when you are in the flow and everything. But then we're also talking about that perhaps after death, if you are too attached, if you are too absorbed in ego, it might be more difficult for you to break free of it. But what part of you is having this difficulty?
Yes.
Any thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah. That.
So some people, the Hare Krishna say it's the soul. It's the soul that's doing it.
Yeah. They may be right. See, that's one attempt rationally to explain what's transrational, what transcends any rational understanding or explanation. But the only thing that makes any real sense to me, and that I find some sense of being in harmony with, is looking at these near-death experiences. There are two basic kinds of experiences that people have. One is of an awareness of an overwhelming presence of love and light and beauty and serenity and peace, and the other is of a very disconcerting and disorienting experience of darkness and struggle and ugliness, etc. And it may very well be that the difference in their near death experience can be attributed to the degree to which one person has grown up and woken up in the course of your lifetime. The more you've upgraded your software, the more you've upgraded your way of being in life, the more you've let go of the things to which you are attached, the more you've let go of your homemade plans of protection and self promotion, the more you've let go of all of that, the more harmonious and peaceful um, your near death experience is. Now, I don't know that I could prove that, but it appears to illustrate the fundamental difference in those two experiences.
What I think about when I think about this though is, for a different person, it's going to be different, and it's that idea too of your what kind of car are you? Are you a Lamborghini or are you a Pinto? Because if you're born a Lamborghini, you need to have good fuel and stuff. And let's say you're an ultra compassionate person, and you automatically have you're a higher functioning individual. Then let's say you do something like kill somebody. That's going to give you a lot of pain and suffering in this world, and maybe more in the next world. But let's say that you're born as a Pinto, and you kill someone, but it doesn't even resonate with you that you killed someone. Who cares? Like, because your brain is already there's no capacity within you to
Yeah.
then
It creates no discord.
yeah, there's no discord at all. So you're not suffering in this world, but then like someone would say that here that person is going to be suffering in the next world, but why? Because he's not even suffering in this world. And the thing is, okay, now he's going on like whatever. They're nothing ever resonated with them. So ironically, it's going to be the dude who's suffering. Like, what do you think of this idea? You see what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, see again, this is an attempt to make some sense, to come up with some theory about something that really is transrational. It goes beyond, uh, it's, what do you call it, apophatic, I think is the word. It's beyond the reach of words and explanations and rational thinking. So um, all I can do is take comfort in the fact that we have all been given the opportunity to wake up and grow up, and our responsibility is to do so. Again, as illustrated in Forrest Gump, when you're up against a wall, run. The issue is just to run it at growing up and waking up.
hmm. So you're talking about Forrest Gump running. Now, we could talk about like Susan Sontag with that stuff. I'm thinking right now I kind of want to just talk about some Bible stuff, about some stories with
Okay.
Jesus. So is this are we doing
Yeah.
good with this? So the story with Jesus, like, okay, so can you explain just a few of them? So like one of them would be Jesus is heals the person who so basically there's a spring of water. I guess it's boiling, and the people would run into the water and they get healed. There's a guy sitting on a mat. He's paralyzed. Jesus comes and he says, "Walk," and the guy walks. What's the significance of this story?
Well, see, first of all, there was this illusion that there are certain periods of time when the water has more of a healing potential than other times. See, that may be just a myth, but it's clear that sometimes the potential is greater than other times. Maybe it's when there are more people coming in there with the flow and with a great expectancy. We don't know, but apparently there was a realization that there are times when more healings occur and times when less occur. So that's the one thing about the story. The other thing about the story is that the man who lay at the pool had a story. He'd created a story for his life, a story that he's handicapped, a story that he's inferior, or at least being treated as inferior, and the people who think of themselves superior think of him as inferior. He had all kinds of reasons and excuses for why he was helpless. And so he was more interested and spent more time focusing on the reasons and using them as excuses for his helplessness and his paralysis or whatever it was. And Jesus realized that he needed to let go of his story, needed to let go of his excuses and his reasons for all of his problems. So he simply said to the man, "Wouldn't you like to be healed?" And the guy started complaining, started reciting all of his reasons and excuses. The healthy people pushed me out of the way, and when the pool is bubbling with healing power, more people who are who don't have nearly as many problems as I have come rush in here. And he said, wait. Quit telling me your story. Just answer my question. Do you want to worship your problems and your reasons and excuses, or do you want to be in the flow? Which do you want? The guy was caught up short, and he was awakened to the realization that he'd spent his life worshiping his story, his excuses and reasons. And he said, "Yeah." And she said, "Okay, take up your bed and walk." And he was healed. And I think it was after that, if it was not that one, there was another one where the disciples came to him and said, "I don't understand. How did you do that? How did you heal him?" He said, "I didn't do anything."
Again, how did you heal him? Can we worship you?
Yeah. Is there some formula for how to do that?
Is there a formula like if I put against these ingredients, am I going to be able to accomplish the same thing?
Yeah. Is there a magic formula? He said, "No. There's only the flow. The flow is happening. God is at work, and I am at work. God, the flow is flowing, and I am flowing." And I invited him, and he joined the flow.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that happened. I didn't do anything. It's already being done.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts with this? So this guy's stories. You're talking about stories. What is this idea of stories? So we have, we talk about Richard Moss's mandala of being, where he talked about there's the past, the future, and then there's the now, and then there's the stories. And I forget his mandala of being. Do you remember them? But there's the stories. Anyways, there's this idea of stories. It's a very important concept with in like the non-dualist framework and the but what is this idea? And so this guy had stories, and his stories were holding him back, and then also, yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, there are events happening all the time, um, and and instead of just letting the event happen and then allowing yourself to respond spontaneously with an inspired thought or an inspired action, or like Jesus, he just had an inspired thought that he shared with the man. Uh, Rather than do that, see, Jesus could have told himself a story. Oh, here's another one of these sorry kind of individuals who thinks he's helpless and he's begging, etc. See, Jesus didn't tell a story about that. He simply responded to what he saw. He had an inspired thought about it.
He was present.
Yeah. He made up no story about this man.
Oh wow.
Absolutely no story. He saw the man as an expression of the same oneness. And because of him coming with that kind of open blank slate, he was able to then respond with an inspired thought. He didn't want him to be different. He wanted him to be who he really was rather than the story he thought he was.
Mm-hmm. Anything that does that.
No?
So, and the other guy had his stories though that were holding him back and
Yeah.
everything. So I remember you said something that if Jesus was a Christian, Jesus would have went up to him and said, "Oh my gosh, you're hurt, you're helpless. Okay, let's get you some Jesus said to give, so let's get you some water, and we'll carry you into the pool,
Right.
and we'll do everything we what is this?
Yeah. They'd had a formula for how to heal him. And when they carried him, they may have just brought him water. They may have sat down and held his hand and felt sorry for him. They may have said, oh, "Come around, let's get everybody pray for him and get this
Yeah.
magician in the sky to come down and heal him." See, they could have come up with all kinds of formulas.
Yeah. So yeah, but so they would say we'll pray for him and we'll pray for him through Jesus though, because
Yeah.
they're saying okay, if we pray to him through Jesus, then it's going to heal him. But then they're not using the same kind of consciousness that Jesus used to do it.
Right.
So, but didn't Jesus say something that you can heal people, like you'll do greater things?
Yeah. If you're in the flow.
So, any other thoughts of this idea? So we talked about authoritative. Jesus spoke with authority and everything. And then remember you talked about this guy Pearl who talked about chicken shit and bullshit.
Yeah, Fritz Perls.
Fritz Pearl talked about chicken shit, bullshit. What was that, Grandpa? So Jesus spoke with authority. So he was in the flow. He was one. But what is Fritz Pearl's idea?
Well, that usually our conversations are either scratching on the surface. That's what he called the chicken. And
But before we go though,
Yeah.
can praying for the person help him? Let's say that Christians did go up to the guy who's certain they pray for him. Can that help? If and you said something about if the guy's in the flow and is placebo a part of the flow? If these people go into the pool and they're healed because of placebo, is that still a part of the flow? Because maybe their level of aliveness was so high that they were healed, but it also has to do with ignorance. So if you believe that, but is it ignorance or is it a recognition of oneness with everything? What is the placebo? Is that an aspect of the flow or is it not?
it can be and it can't be. I mean, I'm sure it is at times. See, if all of the disciples were in the flow and they went up and they prayed for him, see, to pray for him is not to change him, but to see him for who he really is and to see beyond his stories, etc., and bring those stories, but rather to all be in the flow themselves and in the presence of a whole bunch of people who are in the flow. The potential for healing is much greater, much higher.
So, but any other thoughts on that?
Again, go back to the basketball metaphor. In the presence of two or more gathered together on the basketball court in the name of the flow, there am I in the midst of them.
Because the parallel, what was it? The parallel circle. What was it again?
Parallel beams of light potentiate one another and shed much light.
And that has to do with physics. If there's parallel beams of light, then they potentiate each other.
Yeah.
So, but okay, so let's say they do go up and they pray, and they do that, and the guy has placebo. Okay, it could still work. Maybe I don't know. Okay, but any other thoughts of this?
Yeah, the praying works not because it influences a magician in the sky to come down and perform some magical trick, but because it draws the alleged victim into the flow.
So
It would be pretty hard to not be in the flow if you're in the presence of parallel beams of light.
yeah, that's that, Gabriel. So you said alleged victim, and you also mentioned this idea of they might go up into him and pity him, and they might say, "Oh, poor person," and they have sympathy for him, but it's kind of a condescending, like patronizing.
Right.
But any thoughts of this, Grandpa?
Yeah. See, Jesus did not patronize him. That goes back to the other story about the mother who brought her daughter in, who was a rebellious daughter.
Okay, so should I tell what the story is, and you want to explain it?
Well, yeah.
Oh. Okay, you're gonna explain it. Okay, go ahead, Grandpa.
Yes. See, the disciples came to Jesus one day and said, there's a woman that has been bugging us for days on end, trying to get us to come and heal her daughter. And in effect, I'm reading between the lines, Jesus said, "You mean she's been bugging you guys and trying to influence you into fixing her daughter?" And the disciples, yes. And we've tried everything and we can't fix her. Jesus, and they said, would you take her on as your patient? Jesus said, "No, I don't have any openings in my schedule. I came to the lost tribes of Israel." He gave some
Yeah.
reason, and his disciples look at him and as if to say, "How can you reject? You're supposed to be such a loving person." And the woman overheard the conversation and said, I can't remember the whole sequence, but the next thing that happened was whether she asked Jesus or whether the disciples, I forget now the whole story, but anyhow, Jesus said, "No one throws pearls before swine, or no one throws bread to the dogs." Oh yeah, Jesus said that to the. That's right. I think this is the way it goes. The disciples said, "Well, how can you say that you prefer working with these people and not these people?" And Jesus said, "Well, nobody throws pearls to swine or bread to the dogs." And the woman overheard that interchange, and she came up to Jesus and said, "Yes, but if the dogs are hungry enough, they will lick up even the crumbs that fall from the master's table." See, the fact that she said that was an expression of the fact that she let go of her demanding, pushy and demanding desire to fix her pushy and demanding child. And once that shift in her, that upgrade in her software occurred, Jesus said, "There's no problem. Go home. Your daughter's healed." Because the software was healed. He didn't do anything. The woman did what she needed to do, but it looked like
he didn't do anything. It looked like he did it.
Yeah, and
well, he did do something, but it wasn't him. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, he didn't try to fix her. He simply extended an invitation for her to let go of her old software and upgrade her software, download the higher software, and therefore the problem, which was the software, no longer existed. So therefore the daughter was healed, and the mother was healed, and the disciples probably had a moment, an eternal moment of awareness.
Yeah, that's it.
No.
So we're gonna continue with this in 1 second. So video 7.